Someone you care about reads your message and doesn't reply, and within about 10 seconds, you have a complete story. They're annoyed with you, you said something wrong, they're pulling away. By the time they finally text back, "Hey, sorry, my phone died," you have already lived through an entire conflict that never happened. You felt the whole thing, the hurt, the rejection, the bracing for the worst, all of it real in your body, and none of it real in the world. I want to show you the single most useful distinction I know for getting your peace back. Once you can see it, you can't unsee it, and it quietly changes how much of your day you spend suffering things that never actually occurred. It comes down to two words: fact and story. I'm Lauren Fine. I'm a physician, an educator, and a life coach, and I spend a lot of my time watching how people, including myself, take a small neutral thing that happened and build a tall, painful story on top of it without ever noticing that we did it. In the next few minutes, I'll give you the distinction itself, a few examples you'll recognize from your own week, and 4 tools you can use the next time your mind hands you a story and calls it the truth. So here we go. This is the distinction. A fact is what actually happened, the thing the camera could have recorded if this was being recorded. A story is the meaning you added on top of it, the interpretation, the why, the what it says about me. The fact is, they didn't text back. The story is, they're angry at me. The fact is, my boss said that we should talk, and the story is, I'm getting fired. The fact is, he gave a one-word answer. The story, something is wrong with us. Notice that the fact is almost always neutral, boring even. It's the story that carries all the pain. And here's the part that matters most. We don't experience these as two separate things. They arrived fused together in the same instant, so fast that the story feels exactly like the fact. It feels like truth. It feels just like seeing what's there. But it isn't. You're seeing what happened plus a layer you painted on, and then you're reacting to the paint. Now, why does the mind do this constantly without being asked? It's not a flaw in you. It's old wiring doing its job. Your brain is a meaning-making machine, built to scan for threat and close gaps fast, because for the most of human history, the person who assumed the rustle in the grass was a predator lived longer than the one who waited for more information. Makes sense, right? Certainty felt safer than not knowing, even when the certainty was wrong. So, your brain still does that. It hates an open loop. When something happens and the reason is unknown, that unknown feels unbearable, so it reaches for the fastest available story to close the gap. And here's the cruel part. Under stress, the fastest story is almost always the worst one. Not because it's most likely, because it's the most protective. Your brain would rather brace you for a rejection that isn't coming than risk letting you get caught off guard. The result is that you pay in advance and in full for the outcomes that may never arrive. You feel the entire weight of a story your own mind invented, and you call it reality. Let me make this concrete, because the distinction only helps when you can catch it in the wild. So, let's start with one that we open with. They left you on read. They haven't responded. Sit with the actual fact for a second. A message was delivered and has not yet been answered. That is the entire fact. That's all of it. Now, look at what your mind did with it. They're annoyed. I came on too strong. They're losing interest. None of those are on the footage. A camera pointed at the situation would record a phone, a delivered message, and silence. It would not record annoyed. It would not record losing interest. You added those. And the moment you can see that you added them, they stop being facts you have to accept and become guesses that you're allowed to question. Here's another one that you'll know. Your boss messages you, "Can we talk later?" And by lunch, you're mentally cleaned out your desk. I'm in trouble, I did something, they finally noticed that I'm not good enough. The fact your boss wants to talk about something unspecified, right? At an unspecified time. That sentence has 100 possible endings, and the honest truth is that most of them are completely ordinary. A question about a project, a scheduling change, good news even, but your brain didn't reach for the boring endings. It grabbed the catastrophe and then made you live inside it for 3 hours waiting for that meeting, your stomach in knots, over a meeting that half the time turns out to be absolutely nothing. You didn't have more information than your boss gave you. You had a guess, wearing the costume of a fact. One more, because this one runs underneath so many of the others. The friend who was short with you. The colleague who walked past you without saying good morning. The text that came back cold. Your mind does something very specific here. It puts you at the center of their story. So their behavior becomes a message about you, about your worth, about whether you're liked. But step back and look at the fact. A person was short or quiet or brief, that's it. And people are almost always acting out of their own day, their own stress, their own private weather that you cannot see. Their behavior is a fact. The idea that it was about you, that's the story. And it's usually the wrong one. Okay. So if so much of what we feel is built on stories we can't quite see, how do you actually pull the fact back out? Here are 4 tools. Use whichever one fills the moment the best. The first, and the one that I reach for the most, is the camera test. Ask yourself a single question. Could a camera have recorded it? A camera can record, he walked away. It cannot record, he is disappointed in me. If a camera couldn't have captured it, it isn't a fact. It's an interpretation. That one question sorts almost everything in about 1 second. The second tool, strip the adjectives. The story usually hides inside the describing words. He's being dismissive. She's so passive-aggressive. Those aren't facts, they're verdicts. So, take them out and say only what happened. He replied in 3 words. She didn't answer my question. Suddenly, you're looking at the situation instead of your conclusion about it. And the situation is almost always calmer than the verdict. The third, ask for 3 more stories. Your brain hands you one explanation and presents it as the truth. Don't argue with it. Just make it generate 3 more that fit the exact same facts. She didn't reply because she is annoyed, or she's slammed at work, or she's overwhelmed and hasn't answered anyone, or she started a reply and got distracted. Once there are 4 possible stories, the first one loosens its grip on you because now you can see what it always was, not the truth, just the fastest one, the one that would protect you the most. And the 4th, my favorite for catching yourself, in writing or out loud, name the seam. There's one sentence that shows you exactly where the fact ends and the story begins. This happened, and I made that mean this. My friend didn't text back, and I made that mean I'm forgettable. The word "and" is the seam. Everything before it is usually fact. Everything after the story, you stitched on. And once you can see the seam, you can pull the thread. Now, I want to be honest with you because this idea gets misused and I don't want you walking away with the wrong version of it. This is not about telling yourself everything is fine. It's not positive thinking, and it's definitely not gaslighting yourself out of a real concern. Sometimes the story is true. Sometimes he really is upset. Sometimes the meeting is really going to be bad news, and separating fact from story doesn't mean pretending the story is always wrong. It means you stop treating it as automatically right. Here's the difference. When you fuse fact and story, you react to the worst case as if it's already certain. And when you separate them, You get to do something much wiser. You hold the fact, you notice the story, and then you go find out. You ask the question, you check. He gave a short answer, and I don't know why, so let me ask, instead of assuming and quietly starting a cold war over a story he never told me. The facts still deserve your attention. A real problem still needs addressing. You're not numbing out. You're just refusing to suffer the interpretation as if it were the event. So, what do you actually get from all of this? You get a startling amount of your life back. Because once you can see the seam between what happened and what you made it mean, you stop paying for so many things that never happened. The rejection that wasn't a rejection, the conflict that was a dead phone battery, the disaster meeting that was a scheduling change. All those hours your body spent bracing, you get to keep. And there's something bigger underneath it, which is really the whole heart of this. You are not required to believe every story your mind hands you. A thought arriving in your head does not make it true. You can hold it up to the light, look at the actual facts, and decide for yourself. That space between the thing that happened and the meaning that you give it, it's small, but it is where all of your freedom lives. So here's the whole thing in one breath. A fact is what happened, a story is what you made it mean. They arrive fused. The story usually carries the worst case, and you can pull them apart. Could a camera have recorded it? Strip the adjectives, ask for 3 more stories, and name the seam. This happened, and I made that mean this. I'd love to hear yours. In the comments, tell me one fact versus story that you caught yourself in this week. Just the everyday kind, because it helps more people than you think to see that they're not the only one whose brain does this. And if this was useful, there's a video right after this where I take it further into how these stories show up in the hardest conversations we have. I'll see you in that one.